Maya Patel was just a regular Air Force nurse, until an F-22 fighter jet started falling from the sky. With a dying passenger trapped inside and minutes before disaster, she revealed a secret past. They called her Falcon 1, and today, she would prove why that name became a legend. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Lieutenant Maya Patel adjusted her stethoscope as she walked through the medical wing of Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. At 29 years old, she was a flight nurse assigned to the Critical Care Air Transport Team, responsible for evacuating critically injured service members from combat zones. Today was supposed to be a routine training flight. Nothing more than practice drills over the empty desert, running through emergency procedures that she hoped would never happen in real life. "Lieutenant Patel, your transport is ready," called out Sergeant Rodriguez from the doorway. C-130 is fueled and waiting on the tarmac. Maya grabbed her medical bag and headed out. The Nevada sun hit her face as she crossed the airfield, squinting against the bright morning light. She had been doing this job for 3 years now, ever since she completed her flight nurse training. It was demanding work, both physically and emotionally, but she loved it. Being able to save lives at 30,000 feet, in the most challenging conditions imaginable, gave her a sense of purpose that nothing else could match. What most people at the base didn't know about Maya was her background. She rarely talked about it, preferring to let her work speak for itself. But before she became a nurse, before she joined the Air Force Medical Corps, Maya had been something else entirely. Something that seemed like a lifetime ago, something she had walked away from for reasons that still haunted her dreams. She climbed aboard the C-130 Hercules transport aircraft, greeting the crew. Captain Mike Stevens, the aircraft commander, was doing his pre-flight checks. His co-pilot, First Lieutenant Jennifer Cole, was reviewing the flight plan. The loadmaster, Staff Sergeant Tony Martinez, was securing the medical equipment in the cargo bay. "Morning, Doc," Captain Stevens said with a smile. He always called her Doc, even though she corrected him regularly that she was a nurse, not a doctor. "We've got a good day for flying. Clear skies, light winds, perfect conditions for running through our emergency scenarios." "Sounds good, Captain," Maya replied, stowing her gear and beginning her own pre-flight checks of the medical equipment. Oxygen systems, defibrillator, medications, for supplies, ventilator. Everything had to be perfect. In a real emergency, there would be no second chances. The C-130's 4 turboprop engines roared to life, and soon they were taxiing toward the runway. Maya strapped herself into the jump seat, watching through the small window as the base fell away beneath them. She had made this flight hundreds of times, but there was always something magical about leaving the ground, about trusting physics and engineering to keep tons of metal airborne. "Nellis Tower, this is Rescue 47, ready for departure," Captain Stevens said over the radio. "Rescue 47, Nellis Tower, you are cleared for takeoff, runway 21 left. After departure, turn right heading 310, climb and maintain flight level 200. Have a good training flight." "Roger, Tower." Rescue 47 rolling. The C-130 accelerated down the runway, the engine's pitch rising to a powerful roar. Maya felt the familiar sensation of the aircraft rotating, the nose lifting, and then they were airborne, climbing steadily into the crystal blue Nevada sky. For the next hour, everything went according to plan. The crew ran through various scenarios: rapid decompression, onboard fire, patient cardiac arrest, multiple casualties with different priority levels. Maya performed flawlessly, her movements efficient and precise, making split-second decisions about treatment priorities and resource allocation. "That's excellent work, Lieutenant," Captain Stevens said over the intercom. "You're one of the best flight nurses I've worked with. You stay calm under pressure, make good calls, and your technical skills are outstanding." "Thank you, sir," Maya replied. But in the back of her mind, she thought about how this calmness under pressure had been trained into her long before she ever became a nurse. It came from a different time, a different life, when staying calm meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. They were 50 miles northeast of Nellis, at 20,000 feet, when everything changed. Rescue 47, Nellis approach. The controller's voice came through urgent and sharp, completely different from the casual tone of routine communication. We have an emergency situation developing. We need you to maintain current altitude and position. Stand by for further instructions. Captain Stevens and Lieutenant Cole exchanged glances. Roger, Nellis. Rescue 47 maintaining flight level 200, current position. Standing by. Maya unbuckled and moved forward to the cockpit. What's going on? Before anyone could answer, the radio crackled again. This time it was a different voice. Military, tactical frequency, overlaid with static and the background noise of a jet engine. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is Viper 23, F-22 Raptor. I have a critical emergency. I am hit. Aircraft is breaking up. I have one passenger, civilian contractor, unconscious and injured. I am losing altitude and control. Request immediate assistance. Maya's blood ran cold. An F-22 Raptor was one of the most advanced fighter jets in the world, and if one was calling Mayday, the situation was catastrophic. Viper 23, Nellis approach. Copy your emergency. What is your position and altitude? I'm 45 miles northeast of Nellis, descending through 18,000 feet. I cannot maintain level flight. My passenger needs immediate medical attention. He took shrapnel from the explosion. He is bleeding badly and unconscious. Captain Stevens looked at Maya. That's less than 10 miles from our position. Maya's mind was already racing, calculating distances, time, medical scenarios. Can we reach them? Viper 23, this is Rescue 47, AC-130 medical transport. We are 8 miles south of your position at flight level 200. We have a full medical team on board. What is your situation? There was a pause, filled with the sound of alarms and the pilot's labored breathing. Rescue 47, I took a bird strike during a high-speed pass. Multiple birds through the left engine and left intake. The engine exploded, sent debris through the cockpit canopy. My passenger, a systems engineer, was hit by shrapnel. He is unconscious, bleeding from head and chest wounds. I've applied pressure but I cannot maintain altitude and fly the aircraft. I am descending rapidly. I will have to eject in less than 3 minutes. Maya grabbed the radio handset. Viper 23, this is Lieutenant Patel, flight nurse on Rescue 47. If you eject, your passenger will likely die from his injuries before we can reach the crash site. What is your current descent rate? I'm coming down at about 2,000 feet per minute. I have maybe 8 minutes before I run out of altitude options. An idea formed in Maya's mind. It was crazy, dangerous, probably impossible. But it might be the only chance to save the injured civilian. Captain Stevens, she said, turning to the aircraft commander. How close can you get us to that F-22? Stevens stared at her. Close. Maya, that's a fighter jet in an uncontrolled descent. We can't just. I can transfer to that aircraft, Maya said. The words came out steady, certain, even though her heart was pounding. If you can match speed and altitude, bring us alongside, I can cross over and treat the patient while the pilot maintains control long enough to make an emergency landing. Everyone in the cockpit stared at her like she had lost her mind. That's impossible, Lieutenant Cole said. Aircraft-to-aircraft transfers are only done by special operations teams with specialized equipment and months of training. It's never been done with a fighter jet. I've done it before, Maya said quietly. Captain Stevens turned to look at her directly. What do you mean you've done it before? Maya took a deep breath. This was the part of her past she had never shared, the history she had tried to leave behind. Before I became a nurse, I was in the Air Force pararescue program. I was a PJ, a pararescue jumper. I completed the pipeline, served for 4 years, did 3 combat deployments. I've made aircraft transfers, high-altitude rescues, combat casualty evacuations in conditions that would make this look easy. The cockpit went silent except for the drone of the engines. Why didn't you tell anyone? Stevens asked. Because I left that life behind. I saw things, did things, lost friends. I wanted to save lives without the combat, without the danger. So I cross-trained to flight nurse. But right now, there's a man dying in that F-22, and I am the only person in the sky who can save him. Captain Stevens looked at his co-pilot, then at the loadmaster who had been listening from the cargo bay, then back at Maya. If we do this, if we attempt this, it could get us all killed. If something goes wrong. Something is already wrong, Maya interrupted. A man is dying. We can save him. Isn't that why we're all here? Stevens nodded slowly. Okay. Okay. We'll try it. But we do this by the book, as much as any book covers something this crazy. He keyed the radio. Viper 23, this is Rescue 47. We have a plan, but it's going to sound insane. We want to attempt an aircraft-to-aircraft transfer. We have a pararescue-trained flight nurse who can cross to your aircraft and treat your passenger while you fly. There was a long pause. Say again, Rescue 47. Did you say aircraft-to-aircraft transfer to an F-22 in flight? That's affirmative, Viper 23. It's your only chance. If you eject, your passenger dies. If you try to land with an unresponsive passenger in compromised aircraft, you might die. But if we can get medical care to him right now, stabilize him, you might both make it. Another pause. Then, I'm desperate enough to try anything. What do you need from me? Maya took the radio. Viper 23, I need you to slow to your minimum controllable airspeed. What's your stall speed with current damage and configuration? I can probably maintain 180 knots without falling out of the sky, but it's going to be rough. I'm fighting the controls with every second. Copy that. Captain Stevens, can we match 180 knots? Stevens was already adjusting the throttles. We can do 180. It's right at our upper operational range, but we can hold it. Viper 23, descend to 15,000 feet and maintain. We'll come up beneath you and match your speed and altitude. When we're stable, I'll come out through the cargo door and transfer to your aircraft. How exactly are you going to transfer to an F-22 in flight? The pilot asked, and Maya could hear both hope and disbelief in his voice. Your rear cockpit access panel, the one used for maintenance. If you can get it open, I can climb up from beneath and enter through there. It's going to be tight, but it's possible. I can't reach back to open that panel while flying. Your passenger can. Even unconscious, if I can reach him, I can manipulate his arms to unlatch it from inside. Trust me, I've done extractions from more difficult positions. Staff Sergeant Martinez appeared beside Maya, loaded down with equipment. If we're doing this, you need a harness, safety lines, emergency chute, and medical gear that can handle extreme wind. Maya nodded, and they began gearing up. Harness secured, checked, and double-checked. Static line attached. Medical bag specially designed for airborne operations, packed with trauma supplies, pressure bandages, hemostatic agents, airways, chest seals, for fluids. Lieutenant Patel, Captain Stevens said as he maneuvered the C-130 closer to the descending F-22. I need to know your real qualifications. What was your call sign when you were a PJ? Maya paused in her preparations. Her call sign. She hadn't heard it spoken aloud in 5 years. Falcon 1, she said quietly. They called me Falcon 1. Lieutenant Cole turned around. Wait, Falcon 1. I've heard that name. You're the PJ who rescued 6 SEALs from a crashed helicopter in Afghanistan. The mission where you jumped into a hot landing zone, under fire, and stabilized 3 critical patients while calling in airstrikes on your own position. Maya didn't respond. Those memories were still too fresh, too painful. You received the Air Force Cross, Cole continued. Second highest decoration for valor. You're a legend in special operations circles. Why would you give that up? Because legends are built on the graves of friends, Maya said softly. I lost my entire team on my last deployment. I was the only one who came home. After that, I couldn't do combat rescue anymore. But I could still save lives. So I became a flight nurse. The radio crackled. Rescue 47, this is Viper 23. I can see you below me now. I'm at 15,000 feet, speed 185 knots, and I'm struggling to maintain control. Whatever you're going to do, you need to do it fast. My passenger is fading. I can see his breathing is shallow and his color is terrible. Copy, Viper 23. Coming up on your 6 o'clock low. Maintain current speed and altitude. Captain Stevens was a skilled pilot, but what he was attempting now required extraordinary precision. The C-130 rose steadily, closing the distance to the wounded F-22. Through the cockpit windows, Maya could see the fighter jet above them, trailing smoke, its left side visibly damaged. Loadmaster, open the cargo ramp, Stevens ordered. Staff Sergeant Martinez moved to the rear controls, and the massive cargo ramp at the back of the C-130 began to lower. The roar of wind filled the cabin, and Maya felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. This was what she had been trained for, what she was born to do. Range 100 feet, Lieutenant Cole called out. Closure rate 5 knots. Looking good. Maya moved to the edge of the ramp, secured by her safety line. The F-22 was directly above them now, close enough that she could see the pilot's helmet in the cockpit, could see the blood staining the canopy. Range 50 feet. Closure rate 2 knots. Almost there. Viper 23, I need you to do something for me, Maya said over the radio. I need you to tell me about yourself. Keep talking. It will help me gauge your condition and keep you alert. I'm Captain David Chen, been flying F-22s for 6 years. Today was supposed to be a demonstration flight for defense contractors. We were showing the Raptor's capabilities. I never saw the birds. They hit us so fast. There was just an explosion, then blood and alarms everywhere. You're doing great, Captain Chen. What about your passenger? His name is Dr. Robert Marshall, aerospace engineer. He was evaluating some new systems. He's maybe 50 years old, and he was conscious after the strike but lost consciousness about 2 minutes ago. He's bleeding from his head and left side of his chest. Copy that. I'm coming to help him. Rescue 47, I'm ready for transfer. Range 30 feet, Cole called. We're stable. Wind conditions are good. This is as close as we can safely get. Maya looked down. Beneath the C-130, the Nevada desert stretched out endlessly, painted in shades of brown and red. They were 3 miles above it. If anything went wrong, if she missed the transfer, if the safety line failed, she had maybe 30 seconds before she would need to deploy her emergency chute. She had done scarier things. She had jumped from aircraft into gunfire, had fast roped into ambushes, had extracted casualties from burning helicopters. This was just another rescue. The fact that it was at 15,000 feet with a fighter jet made it unusual, but not impossible. Falcon 1 going active, she said, using her old call sign without thinking. Then she stepped off the ramp. The wind hit her like a physical force, but she was ready for it. She had made hundreds of jumps, had done countless aerial insertions. Her body remembered the training, even after 5 years away from it. She deployed her static line, which was attached to a motorized winch system that Martinez controlled. Instead of free-falling, she was lifted upward, rising toward the F-22 like a guardian angel ascending. The fighter jet was massive from this perspective, its angular stealth design creating strange wind patterns. Maya controlled her position with small movements, compensating for the turbulence, the buffeting, the incredible speed at which both aircraft were traveling. Viper 23, I'm at your 7 o'clock low, coming up to your access panel. I need you to rock your wings twice if you can see me. The F-22's wings dipped left, then right. Good. The pilot was still functional. Maya pulled herself higher, using the winch and her own strength. The access panel was about 3 feet below the canopy, used by ground crews for maintenance access to the rear cockpit systems. If she could reach it, she could get inside. Her hands touched the panel. She pulled out a specialized tool, worked the emergency release. The panel resisted, buffeted by the wind. She braced her feet against the fuselage, pulled harder. The panel gave way, swinging open. Panel is open, she called over the radio. I'm going in. It was a tight fit. She had to fold her body, squeeze through an opening designed for maintenance access, not for a person in flight gear carrying a medical bag. But pararescue training taught you to get into impossible spaces. She pulled, twisted, and pushed until she was inside the aircraft. The rear cockpit was a nightmare. Blood everywhere. The injured engineer was slumped in his seat, held by his harness, his head lolled to the side. She could see the wounds immediately, a deep laceration on his forehead, bleeding but not arterial, and a concerning chest wound on his left side where shrapnel had penetrated his flight suit. I'm inside, Maya called. Beginning assessment. She reached forward and checked his carotid pulse. Weak, Freddy, but present. His breathing was shallow and rapid, suggesting tension pneumothorax, a collapsed lung that was filling with air and putting pressure on his heart. Viper 23, your passenger has a tension pneumothorax. His left lung is collapsed. I need to decompress it immediately or he will go into cardiac arrest. Do what you need to do, Captain Chen's voice was strained. I'm just trying to keep us in the air. Maya worked quickly. She opened her medical bag, pulled out a large-bore needle catheter. She felt for the correct anatomical landmark, the second intercostal space at the midclavicular line. She had done this procedure hundreds of times in training and dozens of times in combat, but never in the back seat of a supersonic fighter jet traveling at 180 knots. She positioned the needle, steadied her hand despite the aircraft's turbulence, and thrust it through the chest wall. There was immediate resistance, then a rush of air as the trapped pressure released. Dr. Marshall's breathing immediately improved, becoming less labored. Tension pneumothorax decompressed, Maya reported. Patient's breathing has improved. Now addressing the head laceration and checking for other injuries. She worked methodically, applying pressure bandages to the head wound, checking pupils for responsiveness, assessing for spinal injuries, starting in 4-line to replace lost blood volume. It was like being back in combat, except this time she was the only medical provider, in the smallest operating room imaginable, while traveling at nearly 200 miles per hour. Falcon 1, this is Rescue 47. Captain Stevens' voice came through her headset. We've been monitoring your progress. That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. How's the patient? Stable for now. I've addressed the immediate life threats. He needs surgery, but he will survive long enough to get there. Viper 23, what's your aircraft status? Still losing hydraulic pressure, but slower now. I think I can get us back to Nellis if I take it slow and easy. The question is whether I can land with my right landing gear down. The indicator shows damage. Maya looked around the cramped cockpit, assessing the situation with both medical and tactical eyes. Can you reach any alternate airfield with longer runways and better emergency equipment? Nellis is our best option. It's 7 minutes away at our current speed. Anywhere else adds time and risk. Then we go to Nellis. I'll keep your passenger stable. You just fly us home. What followed were the longest 7 minutes of Maya's life. She monitored Dr. Marshall's vital signs, adjusted his oxygen flow, kept pressure on his wounds, and talked to him constantly, even though he was unconscious. Studies showed that unconscious patients could often hear and respond to voices, that it helped orient them, helped them hold on. Dr. Marshall, my name is Maya. I'm an Air Force flight nurse, and I'm taking care of you. You're going to be fine. We're heading back to base now. You took some hits, but nothing we can't fix. Your pilot is doing great. He's getting us home. Just hang in there. Meanwhile, Captain Chen fought with his damaged aircraft, nursing it through the sky with degraded systems and an off-balance airframe. Over the radio, Maya could hear the controlled chaos of emergency coordination. Nellis Tower clearing all other traffic, emergency vehicles rolling to the runway, medical teams standing by. Falcon 1, this is Nellis approach. We have your situation. Understand you are currently in the back seat of a damaged F-22 with a critical patient. Is that correct? Affirmative, Nellis. That's my current office space. There was a pause, then, copy that, Falcon 1. Just wanted to confirm we weren't experiencing a radio hallucination. Emergency medical is standing by. We have a trauma team ready to receive your patient the moment you're on the ground. Thank you, Nellis. He's stable but needs immediate surgical intervention. Likely internal bleeding in addition to the injuries I've treated. Viper 23, Nellis Tower. You are cleared to land any runway. Emergency equipment is standing by. Wind calm, visibility unlimited. Take whatever approach you need. Roger, Nellis. I'm going to try for a straight in to runway 21 left. My right gear indicator is showing red, so this may not be pretty. Maya braced herself and continued monitoring her patient. She had survived helicopter crashes, had been in aircraft that took enemy fire, had ridden out emergency landings before. But those had been in large transport aircraft with multiple engines and robust landing gear. An F-22 with damaged systems was a different story. She could feel the descent beginning, the aircraft slowing, configuring for landing. Captain Chen was talking himself through the process over the radio, partly for air traffic control and partly, Maya suspected, to keep himself calm. Gear coming down. Left main shows down and locked. Nose gear shows down and locked. Right main shows down but not locked. This is going to be interesting. Viper 23, if your right gear collapses on touchdown, the aircraft will veer right and possibly cartwheel. Recommend you plan to eject you and your passengers immediately after touchdown if you sense any instability. Maya keyed her radio. Negative on ejection. My patient cannot survive an ejection in his condition. The G-forces and impact would kill him. We ride this down no matter what. Falcon 1, this is highly irregular. Then mark it as irregular in your report. But we are not ejecting. Viper 23, you get us on the ground, and I will make sure we both walk away from it. Copy that, Falcon 1, Captain Chen said, and Maya could hear the respect in his voice. Let's do this together. The runway appeared below them. Maya could see the emergency vehicles lining the taxiway, fire trucks and ambulances with lights flashing. The C-130 was nearby, having landed ahead of them, and she could imagine Captain Stevens and his crew watching, holding their breath. The F-22 descended, slower and slower, the runway rising up to meet them. Maya held Dr. Marshall secure, one hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat, strong and steady despite everything he had been through. 50 feet, Captain Chen called out. 40 feet. 30 feet. Here we go. The landing gear touched down. The left main made contact smoothly. The nose gear followed a moment later. Then the right main hit and Maya heard a sickening crunch of metal. The aircraft lurched violently to the right, skidding, grinding. Captain Chen fought the controls, keeping the nose straight through pure skill and determination. Metal screamed against concrete. Sparks flew past the canopy. The aircraft was slowing but veering toward the edge of the runway. Maya held Dr. Marshall with all her strength, her body shielding his, protecting him from the violent deceleration. Then, somehow, impossibly, the aircraft stopped. They were on the ground, tilted at an angle from the collapsed right gear, but stopped. Alive. Rescue 47, this is Viper 23. We are down. Aircraft is damaged but stable. I need immediate medical for my passenger. The emergency crews swarmed the aircraft. Maya heard the sound of the canopy being opened from outside. Hands reached in, helping her extract Dr. Marshall. A gurney appeared, and she transferred him carefully, continuing to maintain his airway, calling out his status to the trauma team that surrounded them. Male approximately 50 years old, tension pneumothorax decompressed in flight, significant blood loss from head and chest wounds, for established, vital signs currently stable but needs immediate surgical evaluation for possible internal bleeding. The trauma team took over, rushing Dr. Marshall toward the waiting ambulance. Maya tried to follow but found her legs wouldn't quite support her. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the reality of what she had just done was setting in. Strong hands caught her. Captain Chen had climbed out of the front cockpit and came around to support her. His face was covered in cuts from the shattered canopy, and his flight suit was stained with blood, but his eyes were clear and focused. "Thank you," he said simply. "You saved his life. You saved both our lives." Maya looked at the damaged F-22, at the emergency crews securing it, at the marks on the runway where they had skidded to a stop. "Just doing my job." "No," Chen said firmly. "That was way beyond any job description. That was heroism. That was Falcon 1. By the time Maya was cleared by medical and debriefed by safety officers, word had spread across the entire base. The flight nurse who had transferred from a C-130 to a damaged F-22 mid-flight, who had performed emergency medical procedures at 15,000 feet and 180 knots, who had saved a dying man under impossible conditions. The base commander, a two-star general named Patricia Morrison, personally came to the medical wing to see her. "Lieutenant Patel," General Morrison said, "I've been briefed on what you did today. I've reviewed your records, including your classified pararescue files. I have to ask why someone with your qualifications and experience was working as a flight nurse instead of being in special operations where you clearly belong." Maya was tired, sore, and emotionally drained. "With respect, General, I belong exactly where I am. I left special operations because I was tired of war, tired of losing people. I became a flight nurse because I wanted to save lives without the combat. Today was an exception, not a return to my old life." "I understand," Morrison said gently. "But you need to understand something too. What you did today, using your pararescue skills in a medical role, combining tactical expertise with medical care, you showed us something important. You showed us that those worlds don't have to be separate. That sometimes the best medical care comes from someone who knows both how to fight and how to heal." Over the next several days, as Maya recovered and Dr. Marshall underwent surgery and began his recovery, she learned more about the impact of her actions. The video of the aircraft-to-aircraft transfer had been captured by multiple cameras at Nellis. It was shown at military medical conferences, at pararescue training schools, at tactical aviation courses. She became, overnight, an example of what was possible when training, courage, and determination came together. Captain David Chen recovered from his injuries and returned to flying. He told everyone who would listen about the flight nurse who had climbed into his dying aircraft and saved his passenger. Dr. Marshall survived his surgery and made a full recovery. He wrote a letter to the Air Force Chief of Staff, recommending Maya for the Distinguished Flying Cross. 2 weeks after the incident, Maya was called to a formal ceremony at Nellis. She stood at attention in her dress uniform as General Morrison read the citation. "Lieutenant Maya Patel, for extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight as a flight nurse. On the date in question, Lieutenant Patel demonstrated exceptional courage, medical expertise, and aerial skills by performing an unprecedented aircraft-to-aircraft transfer to provide life-saving medical care. Her actions directly resulted in saving the life of a critically injured civilian and enabling the safe recovery of a damaged military aircraft. Her performance brought great credit upon herself and the United States Air Force. The general pinned the Distinguished Flying Cross to Maya's uniform. Then she did something unusual. She stepped back and saluted. In military protocol, enlisted members salute officers, not the other way around. But General Morrison held her salute, and one by one, every officer in the room joined her. It was a gesture of respect, a recognition that sometimes rank and position mattered less than courage and skill. Later that evening, Maya stood alone on the flight line, watching the sun set over the Nevada desert. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Captain Stevens, Lieutenant Cole, and Staff Sergeant Martinez from the C-130 crew. "We wanted to thank you," Stevens said, "for letting us be part of that mission. For trusting us to get you close enough to make the transfer. That was the most meaningful flight of my career." Maya smiled. "I trusted you because you were professionals. You did your jobs perfectly. Without your flying, none of it would have been possible." "Are you going back to special operations?" Cole asked. "After all this, surely they want you back in pararescue." Maya shook her head. "No. I'm a flight nurse. That's who I am now. What happened with the F-22, that was me using old skills to handle a new emergency. But my place is taking care of patients on medical transports, saving lives one at a time, without combat, without war." "But you're Falcon 1, Martinez said. "You're a legend." "Falcon 1 was who I was," Maya said gently. "Lieutenant Patel is who I am. And that's enough for me." But she was wrong about one thing. The call sign followed her. Within weeks, every pilot, every crew member, every medical professional at Nellis knew her as Falcon 1. When she walked through the base, people nodded respectfully. When she boarded a C-130 for a medical transport mission, the pilots told their co-pilots, "We've got Falcon 1 in the back. Everything will be fine." The name had returned, not because she wanted it, not because she needed it, but because it represented something important. It represented the idea that training and skill never truly left you, that courage could be found in unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest heroes were the ones who quietly did their jobs, day after day, asking for nothing except the chance to save one more life. 3 years after the F-22 incident, Maya was promoted to captain and assigned as the chief flight nurse at Nellis. She developed a new training program that combined pararescue techniques with flight nursing, teaching medical personnel how to handle extreme emergency situations, how to make aircraft transfers, how to provide care in combat conditions. The program became a model for the entire Air Force Medical Service. Graduates were deployed around the world, saving lives in conditions that would have been impossible before. They all wore a special patch on their uniforms, a falcon in flight, wings spread, carrying the medical caduceus. They called themselves the Falcon 1 graduates. And whenever one of them faced an impossible situation, whenever they were asked to do something that seemed beyond human capability, they remembered their instructor. They remembered the nurse who had climbed into a dying fighter jet at 15,000 feet, who had saved a man's life while traveling at 180 knots, who had proven that courage and skill could overcome any obstacle. She was just a nurse, until the F-22 pilots heard her call sign. Then she became a legend.